Great. Thank you very much, Damien. Is that working okay? Can you see that?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
we can see it, thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Damien, and thank you, Minister. Thank you very much for your introduction as well. I mean, that was a wonderful introduction, and it just shows someone who's got real interest and empathy and keenness for the sheep industry. And it was yeah, it was really nice to hear that. So thank you very much. So as Damien said, my name's Phil Stocker. I'm the Chief Executive of the National Sheep Association, and you know, I'm really pleased that you've invited us to come along and take a part in your Animal Health Week. Again, it sounds like a really great initiative, and delighted to be part of it. My role tonight really is to set the scene in a similar way to the way that your minister has set, although hopefully with a little bit more depth, really. And then I'm going to leave it to the two technical experts, Craig Watkins and Chris Cousins, to talk specifically about Ionis and OPA. So I've titled my talk Iceberg Diseases, Reasons to be Careful, 1, 2, 3. Some might recognize a song of the 80s and 90s that relate to that title, but you might share my interest in music if that is the case. But I just, in terms of iceberg diseases, there's a real reason, there's a clear reason why we term these diseases as iceberg diseases. And it's not because, like a lot of the icebergs that we're seeing in relation to climate change at the moment, that they're melting away. I wish that was the case, that iceberg diseases were actually you know, getting less and becoming less frequent. But the reason they're termed as iceberg diseases is because all we usually see of them is the tip of that iceberg, and there's always a lot more below the mass, below the surface, if you like, that mass below the surface that can cause a lot of damage. And I'll talk a little bit about that just in a moment. But the challenge that is facing us as a sheep farming industry, I guess, and as an agricultural industry generally, is twofold. And this is very much work and direction that is coming out from a lot of policy development in the United Kingdom, but I believe it's common across, certainly across all of our European nations. And you know, for all the change that is going on, and we are living in a period of real uncertainty at the moment. You know, all of us, I guess, in relation to Brexit and the UK's departure from the European Union, but a lot of other uncertainty as well around climate change, economics, political uncertainty across the globe. But one thing that I think is shining through as being fairly common and consistent in all of that is that there's two big challenges on our industry. The first one is very much about increasing our productivity. There is an expectation that our farming enterprises can move more towards standing on their own 2 feet. It's worth pointing out that when we talk about productivity, we're not talking about production volumes, and we're not talking about output. We're talking about a measure of efficiency and a measure of profitability. Essentially, what we're looking at there is that gap, that critical gap between the value of the output and the costs of the input. And you know, all farmers would agree that it's in our interest for our livestock enterprises, our sheep enterprises, to be as profitable and efficient as possible. That second challenge on our industry is to whilst we're increasing our productivity, is to also protect, to maintain, and further improve our environment. And you know, it won't be a surprise to anyone, I don't think, that not just within the European Union but across the globe, the issue of climate change is becoming ever more critical. And the issue of species loss as well, and the need for us to play our role, our part in nature recovery, I guess. So you know, there's this twin track challenge on us, I guess. In some ways, those challenges can, or those elements of work can complement each other, and in other elements they can challenge each other. But it's the most important thing, I think, is that we're aware of what we're trying to achieve there. What diseases are we talking about when we refer to iceberg diseases? Well, there's 5 main diseases: border disease, CLA, Melavisna, Ionis disease, and OPA. Those are the main key iceberg diseases. And as we've said already, the 2 that we're going to focus on this evening is Ionis and OPA. I just want to refer to a publication that is fairly recent. It's certainly very up to date and relevant. You may have access to other similar publication, but this is one that is freely available on the internet, on the AHDB website, and it's a technical manual for vets, consultants, and farmers. It covers a lot of what we're all going to be talking to tonight, and I just wanted to raise people's awareness of the fact that it's a really useful publication that anyone can access, really. So the impact of iceberg diseases, as I've said already, all can, part of the problem here is, or the impact of iceberg diseases is that the issues that lie below the surface. And one of the big challenges we have with iceberg disease is that they can lie undetected in flocks for a long time, causing significant production losses that sometimes may just go unnoted, or maybe be blamed on other issues without any visually clinical affected sheep being seen, really. And it's only those possibly small numbers of clinically effective sheep that are really at the tip of the iceberg, with a lot of the real damage that is causing damage and affecting our productivity levels almost going unseen, unnoticed, undiagnosed, and very little done about it, really. In terms of trade, the iceberg diseases are very much on the radar in terms of sheep exports. The whole issue of improving the health state of sheep is getting more and more important, and biosecurity and quarantining sheep and avoidance of just spreading diseases around between our nations and around the country, really. So, as we go through this process of Brexit in terms of future trade between ourselves and the European Union, there will be a closer eye on the iceberg diseases to make sure that we're not moving those diseases around the country. So in terms of future trade and profitability, again, those iceberg diseases are going to be really, really important. There's increasing attention domestically on these diseases, these sleeping problems, if you like, with changes in support programs that are moving away from direct support and moving towards a reward for public goods. And again, those the changes in farm support programs and that expectation that our farm businesses need to be more productive will drive productivity. And as we'll see in a moment, all these iceberg diseases have a severe impact on productivity. None of them have real treatments. There's one or two that have protective vaccines, but most of the protection is through identification and culling. And what makes life even more difficult is that they're not always easy to identify. We haven't got a consistent understanding of them, and we haven't really got a good idea of their prevalence either. When we're talking about prevalence, it would be great to be able to talk about what we do know about prevalence, but sadly, the situation is more about what we don't know about prevalence, and this gives an indication of the sort of scale that we're dealing with, really. This was the total number of English and Welsh sheep flocks that were submitted samples for any iceberg diseases between the years 2007 and 2016, and you can see that we're hovering between 220 and maybe 350 flocks a year that are actually submitting samples. So again, our knowledge of these diseases is nowhere near where it needs to be, and a number of people that are actually looking for them again is nowhere near where it needs to be, and because of that, we know that it's underreported and underdiagnosed. This does give some evidence or some justification as to why we're talking about Ionis and OPA this evening. You'll see that from 2012 onwards, Ionis in yellow there and OPA in blue have been two of the most commonly occurring iceberg diseases that have been picked up during any surveillance work that's been done through veterinary investigation centres in both England and Wales. So these are two problems that are becoming recognised as being really serious, yeah, that's why we're focusing on them this evening, really. And so back to my three reasons to be careful about these diseases. The first one comes under the heading of sheep productivity. We know that these diseases, all of them really, can affect lambing percentage, and we know that lambing percentage is probably one of the biggest drivers behind sheep productivity. If we increase the number of lambs that we're selling, then it's likely that our productivity is going to be improved. And we know that these diseases can have a real negative impact on our lambing percentage. Ewe and ram longevity, they reduce the life of ewes and lambs, and again, we know what cost that can have on a sheep flock, and that relates very closely to the next line below, which is around body condition score, feed costs, and cull values. It's one thing reducing ewe and lamb longevity, but if body condition score is low, then that reduces the cull values, and it just overall it reduces the financial performance of the flock. It's very common that farmers try to do something to address body condition score, and quite often we feed those sheep, and feeding those sheep is expensive, and quite often with these conditions it doesn't really yield the results that we would like, and so it's a really severe inefficiency on our businesses. For those ewes that do come through, and these would be the ones at that lower mass of the iceberg frame, I guess, they will impact on mastitis levels and milk yield, and we know that milk yield will affect lamb growth rates and feed efficiency. And if you've got a sheep flock which has got a low lambing percentage, slow lamb growth rates, and poor feed efficiency, then overall you're looking at a very inefficient system. So in terms of productivity, we know that getting these diseases under control is really important. The second reason to be important is sheep welfare. And again, your minister mentioned the very positive image that sheep farming has got within the public, and I think that's something that we need to be very grateful for and protect as much as we possibly can. I've said that British sheep farming has good general welfare conditions. I think that sheep across the whole of the European Union have the image, the perception of having very good welfare conditions. They live in extensive conditions, out in grass, able to carry out their relatively natural behavioural needs, and that sets up a fantastic foundation, if you like, for good welfare conditions. So we know that we've got a good welfare image, and we need to do more to make sure that we live up to that. If we're looking at improving sheep welfare within the sheep flock generally, I believe that the best investment that we can make is in improving sheep health. We know that most sheep health conditions, whatever they might be, whether it's icebergs or whether it's internal parasites, they have a real negative impact on sheep welfare. And we also know that significant welfare gains can be made by avoiding wasting diseases and respiratory disease. And I guess if you relate that to what the world is going through at the moment with COVID and the impact that we're seeing on essentially what is a respiratory disease, we know what pain and suffering that is causing. And to be honest, all of the respiratory diseases of our sheep flocks cause a similar level of pain, suffering, and poor welfare. So the third reason that we need to be careful is that the future is changing. We know that. I've talked about that a little bit already. We've got this general move away from direct support and a move generally towards a payment for public goods. And as that support, as that structure of farm support changes, it will drive more efficiency within our sheep flocks. So again, getting these diseases, identifying them and getting them under control is going to be really crucial if we're going to manage to maintain our positions, our businesses, our situations as we go through this change in farm policy. Pride and personal satisfaction are another a big factor for me. I mean, there's nothing worse than, there's nothing more depressing than running a sheep flock that is unhealthy. You're always struggling to try to keep that body condition score, try to improve lambing percentage, try to improve lamb growth. And there's nothing more depressing than if you can't tackle that. If you know you're dealing with an unhealthy flock with health problems, it can be really depressing, and pride and personal satisfaction goes an awful long way to inspiring the attitudes amongst farmers to want to do a good job and to want to do things better. And then in terms of the marketplace as well, for sellers, for people that are selling breeding stock, health assurance could well add value. And because of those reasons that I've mentioned already above, we are approaching a time, I believe, when we will be selling breeding stock with some levels of health assurance. So trying to provide that when we're selling sheep into other people's breeding flocks could well add value and add assurance in the future. And then for those people buying breeding stock, health assurance is certainly going to reduce risks, potentially reduce costs, and reduce breakdowns in the health status of their flock. So, I think, for those three very good reasons, productivity, sheep welfare, and just to make sure that we prepare for the changes that are ahead of us, I think it's a very, very good reason why we should be focusing on all iceberg diseases. And as I say, this evening, we're looking at both Ionis and OPA. So with that, I'll pass over to Craig, and thank you very much.